Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on a Sunday. If you're in Califas, I know we have Hurricane Hillary out there, so hope you're all safe at home. I am really excited to welcome everyone to the Chicana Caucus meeting for August 2023, and to our esteemed guest, Jacqueline Jax, Armendariz Unzueta. Did I say that correctly? All right. And so I'm really excited to hear your story, Jax. Peggy shared a little bit with me about your efforts in, identifying as an Indigenous Chicana, leading efforts in your community against the Colorado Springs Police Department, which is a very big undertaking. So I want to pass it over to our hermana Peggy, who is a member of the partido as well, who will introduce you fully and to our members and to everybody who's listening in. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone. Mateo. Yaoi Machika. I'm just happy that we're here, and I would say maybe like a month ago, after somebody she asked me to see if I want to do an interview, and I said, yeah, I'll do an interview. And then I was just doing my thing, and then I get this news from our Chinook Center, the family, about Jax, that there's a race, and then it says that they're gonna the ACLU got involved, helping Jax, and when I heard that they were suing the CSPD and the FBI, I was just like, what? And then I found out that she was arrested because I was there at that event.
You're in the body cam from my case.
Yes. Yeah. And I recorded too. So a lot of the audio that I recorded is also documented. It's actually in the Alphabet Boys. There's a podcast called the Alphabet Boys. If you haven't listened to it, go to episode 8, Colorado Springs Police. Is that how it's labeled?
It's episode 8, Colorado Springs.
Yes, and that's how it's labeled. And listen to it. And see, I was also supporting my family, the brothers. I was going to the court hearing, supporting them, but I didn't know about Jax. I just been so busy. When I found, like, I had no idea. I even told John, he's the owner of Chinook, and I didn't know. I felt so bad. Like, I didn't know you were going through all this, and I wish I would have been there for you more, sister.
Thank you.
No, it's just, and when I found out, like, I need to, like, and that's when I contacted, Dr. Vanessa, and I told her, can we like change it? She needs to be on this. This takes precedence, and because she's our sister, and she's doing something historical. This is a historical thing that you're doing.
Yes.
And also you're empowering our Indigenous women and everyone, because this is like powerful, and I'm getting, escalofríos. I know our ancestors are here, they're watching, and our people and our children. So that's why it was just very important for you to be here for this, Chicana Caucus, and thank you, everyone for the support. So I'm gonna have you, introduce yourself.
Sure.
And then, but again, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Que viva la mujer.
Muchísimas gracias. Mil gracias. I am almost out of words after hearing so much kindness from you, and I thank you. And so, I call myself Jax. My name is Jacqueline Armendariz Unzueta, and I feel like for this audience, a good way to segue or understand what I went through is part of what happened to me is being targeted for my Chicana identity. And as I went through that, I used to be Jacqueline Armendariz, and I decided to take back, my mommy's name too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something like you already spoke to it, Peggy, that through this experience, tapping even deeper into the power that I know our ancestors give us. And really, this being about, yes, protecting my community, protecting democracy, and the fact that well, we've always been here.
Yeah.
And the systems that are at play, which are a lot larger than us, how they try to harm us, how important, as tiring as it can be, how important it is to continue to stand up when a wrong occurs. And just a little background about me, I've been politically active, at least since really directly since 2012.
Yeah.
I used to be a newspaper journalist, actually, and it's because I wanted to make change in the world. There's a saying that I really appreciate, which for journalists, it's we're here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And in a capitalistic society, which our comunidad is starting to understand, right? Like what we need to dismantle even more.
Mhm.
All those things mixed together is I went from being an observer
Yeah.
to someone who needed to take direct action. That's how I view myself. And I also had experience in the US Senate as a staffer. I've worked for municipal government,
Mhm.
and I'm also in the nonprofit sector now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is advocacy work. Community building is where, like you said earlier, right, what that means. But for me, I put it as like, that's my wealth.
Yeah.
Community is, my riches. And so flash forward to the housing march that we were at 2021,
Yeah.
that a split second reaction to seeing my community be abused made me a target for Colorado Springs Police Department. And at the time, we didn't know that actually the FBI was involved. And I'll get to that in a
Yeah.
second. But the reason my Chicana identity is important to me because we live in a world of constructs.
Mhm.
And so I have to be in a box, like this is the one I picked.
Yeah. Yeah.
That said, there are things we live by, like self-determination, the value of community. And so I think those things, when the police started to try to figure out who I was to
Mhm.
target me, they learned those things and they wanted to come for me even harder, frankly. They learned that I worked for a US senator, the senior senator of Colorado, who's like a super delegate Democrat sort of
Yeah.
thing. I think that CSPD has an issue in that they need to be looking at their officers' biases. That's super clear. And in my case, I think when they learned who I am and what I did, like their cuckoo brains just went off with, conspiracy theories about Antifa and just all the wild shit that's out there right
Yeah.
now on the far right. And it's toxic, and when it infects an institution like law enforcement, that's a problem,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
in general, but especially because I believe the way that they've been acting like bullies with badges and guns.
Yeah.
That's even worse, right?
Yeah.
And so I think those things all mixed together, especially brought me to where I am today, oddly enough. And I I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, Peggy, because this is part of why we're talking. This is the history part of things,
Mhm.
is that this case is actually the first in the country
Yeah.
that is irrefutable evidence that the FBI and local authorities were spying on people like us
Yeah.
because of our political beliefs, which Black Lives Matter,
Mhm.
housing is a human right, white supremacy is domestic terrorism. Those things that are our right to say under free speech, they tried to make us into criminals for that. In this case, they can't, there's no suspicion. It's evidence that that's what they did.
Yeah. It's historical. Like when I found out, that we were infiltrated, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I was here at the meetings. I stood by that individual, and I was just,
You never met them. That's how like disjointed this whole thing was.
yeah. I never met her or talked to her, but I was there in the meeting, and I had my other berets there, and I just wouldn't. But it's now that I think of it, everything, the picture, it's very, it was what they were trying to, how they had her dressed and everything, and
Yeah.
how she was,
The persona.
yes, and
Yeah.
how she was baiting our
It
comrades.
was a honeypot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm so glad you mentioned the alphabet boys, because an important piece of this, again, like comunidad and what does that look like? This has been a community effort entirely, and that community has extended to, a really high quality journalist. His name is Trevor Aronson.
Yeah.
He wrote about us for The Intercept. He's the creator of that Alphabet Boys podcast
Yeah.
that you mentioned. That's been a huge piece of this. And even then, that was a huge help, because that's what got really the American Civil Liberties Union attention, is having that media coverage. And then they started to look into our case further, and it was thankfully very clear to them that they needed to make a case. And
Yeah.
the way that they put it, which I agree with entirely, is um what happened to me, and the fact that CSPD came for me at my house and then confiscated all my electronic devices to leave me in a blackout in retaliation for being who I am, which is saying, you're abusing my community, shame on you.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing that day. I can't deny it. There's body cam out there of me saying shame on you and yelling at them because of the way that they were acting. And it was traumatizing. I went home that day and wept because it was so unnecessary the way that they behaved.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I know you were there. How do you mind, Peggy, if I ask you how you felt during that day? Because it left everyone really upset for no goddamn reason. They didn't have to do that.
Yeah, we were in the front lines. I was my sister, T Rose, the Abby. We're in the front lines, and I always have my camera on just in case, just in case. And I was, up front with Sean. I was right with Sean, and yeah, my understanding they were just gonna supposedly make sure we're safe, and
That's not what happened. They
No.
made us more unsafe.
Yeah, they made it more unsafe because they were like, I guess with my understanding, CSPD was gonna be out there like to make sure nothing went wrong. And they were actually ready in their riot gear.
Yeah.
They had riot gear on. They were way across. Me and Sean were right in the front. And then me and Sean were just like, what?
What the hell?
Yeah, And then by the time we get across, we're walking the street, and I know they got
They were making commands. Yes.
they're making commands to us to get off the street, and I'm like, what? This is like a peaceful. This is demonstration what we're
They
doing.
had actually blocked the street first anyways.
Yeah.
You could argue like, we're not the ones impeding traffic. You already did that.
They were blocking it.
Yeah.
They were blocking the whole, two-way. So we're getting ready to, go, and then we decide not to go that direction, so we go this direction, and when we're going towards the mountains west, and then by the time we get out there, they're already coming. Next thing you know, Sean, like it's
A
everything.
dog pile. That's what freaked me out.
Yeah.
That's why I dropped my bike. And because I dropped my bike and it fell next to a cop, they used that as an excuse to charge me for a second-degree felony attempted aggravated assault on a police officer.
It just dropped your bike.
Well, and I dropped my bike, and
Yeah.
I'm quoted, a lot of different places talking about this, but I dropped my bike because I remember looking back. You mentioned Sean,
Yeah.
who, especially when you look at the evidence that came from my case, it was all about targeting Sean, who is a black man,
Yeah.
an outspoken black man, unapologetically.
Mhm.
And so I remember that particular like 0.3 seconds
Yeah.
that like changed my life forever.
Yeah.
I was looking back and I couldn't see anybody. I just saw a dog pile of officers, and
Saw it.
I was super freaked out. And I was like, they're coming for everybody. Is this another I can't breathe moment? I remember thinking that. And then I turned around and there's this other riot cop charging. And so I'm like, you coming for me? Like, what the, still.
Yeah.
The whole thing was like shocking, really. And I guess I maybe that I felt a little bit naive, maybe, but like I'm from El Paso, Texas. Like I've protested along the border. Like CBP has been part of my everyday life as a kid. That kind of police presence, the militarization, and even then, what I've been through and seen from where I'm from, the frontera, uh, what to me it was more striking and terrifying, that moment with CSPD, because let's just, you know, say what we really think, which is white supremacy is a problem in Colorado Springs and the country. And I think where we are, I'm not a member yet, but we'll work out on the form. But with the partido, like we all know that I think that's what animates us is in part is what we're seeing out there right now. And this case is related to that, you know, because they came after me and they started writing really just idiotic things in an attempt to criminalize me. One of the documents they went through my social media, right?
Yeah.
And I tweeted that white supremacy is domestic terrorism.
Mhm.
And they quoted that in one of their warrants against me, saying, like, well, that means that she hates white people. And that means that she meant to harm this officer who is, by the way, a white male. And it was like, whoa, like this police officer doesn't even understand like how stupid he looks right now, how idiotic that is. And really, to a point, criminal, because that's a violation of my First Amendment right. Um, I'm entitled to the right to say and believe that white supremacy is domestic terrorism. And you can't make me into a criminal for it. And then with my case, the Fourth Amendment stuff, like my right to privacy, the fact that the way the ACLU has described it, which I really appreciate, is it puts it succinctly, is that CSPD's argument for confiscating all my electronic devices, including like a hard drive I had from like middle school, right? Like everything, phones that didn't work, was that people use their cell phones and electronic devices to communicate. And it's like that is so incredibly broad that if you let them get away with that bullshit, they could do this to anyone for no goddamn reason. And then when you consider this in the political context now, trust me, it is blowing my mind regularly to watch Trump go through like his 91 felonies and me going with in this direction and it's surreal, right? And we can't let them act like they're the same thing. Because that's what they're trying to do. And so I appreciate part of that is having to talk about it, broadcasting it. And I'm asking people, you know, everyone to just when you can, like share this story. You know?
That's why I was like, we gotta share this. And I know when I mention it, I know blew people's minds like, what?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Like, yes, this is really happening. This is historical. And when I get really like it, I get really passionate about things, and that's why I'm really like, oh no, I'm like, I need to talk to Dr. Vanessa about this. So,
I'm so grateful.
thank you. And you know, when I was in Vashon, I knew that he was targeted right there because like, why didn't they take me? I was right there with him. I was, you know, so next I just started talking, you know, I started talking to the colleague, what are you doing? This is wrong. How dare you? I mean, you can hear me in the audio of the Alphabet Boys. I was cussing too. I was like, what the fuck? Like what are you, why are you doing this? We're not doing
We
anything.
had every right to be angry. And
Yes.
they can't criminalize us for being angry, but we all know that that is constantly what happens. And some of us lose our lives just for being angry when we have every right to be.
I mean, I went to the court hearings and I saw everything that they used against my brothers, and I was just like, "That's this is important for me to be here because when we're at protests, I can make sure you know being a vanguard for people that are out there protesting. Make sure like just be careful with you know what you do because I don't want you them to use it against you. So that's why
We all need to be reminded of that. Clearly, right?
And that's why I have experience in doing the security and make sure my you know friends are out there, you know, being activists, doing the work, make sure they're safe. At the same time, I know what these pigs are looking for. They'll use anything against you. And that was just when I was at the court, I was like, I can't believe they're saying just because he moved a certain way, they were assaulting the officer. Like, are you freaking the pig?
Right. And it's something we know, but when you like see it firsthand or have to live through it firsthand, it's just a different kind of sense of it, right? And I think one thing I'd mentioned too that I will forever, ever be proud of this is the fact that oddly, what you're describing, Peggy, and I want to give you some grace because I can tell you feel bad about not walking with me in the court dates I had.
Yeah.
But the truth is, like, they were low key on purpose because my part of the process,
Yeah.
those court dates were like me being there 5 minutes and like nothing of substance.
Yeah.
It didn't go to trial. And I want to explain
Yeah.
what I'm proud of and why it happened that way is that I refused to plead guilty, even though, my attorney was encouraging a plea, obviously to the felony
Yeah.
accusation. But of course, the way the system does, which probably most people here might know that most of the cases in the legal system, I don't call it the justice system.
Yeah.
I call it the legal system.
Yeah.
Result in pleas. And so that's totally common that there'll be, this back and forth. And so that's what they were doing to me, like trying to kind of like wear me down. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I was going through that, I refused to take a plea at
Yeah.
first. And that is that is what is directly related to us having discovered that we were infiltrated
Yeah.
by a CSPD officer under the authority of the FBI. Why? Because the cases that you were describing, the brothers, they were in municipal court,
Mhm.
which is just a like much smaller
Yeah.
kind of venue, let's
Yeah.
say. But because they had me on a felony, I was in a more, serious venue, which was, I guess, district court.
Yeah.
And the difference was this, which I will definitely say this on the record, is that consider that the municipal judges,
Mhm.
they work with CSPD. They're the same house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So those judges were quite friendly
Mm.
to the case that the prosecutors were trying to make, right? And CSPD. Whereas in my venue, because it was a more serious accusation, I really had the benefit of a judge who was actually doing their job in a stricter enforcement of the evidentiary rules.
Yeah.
So because I refused to take a plea and we were probably going to go to trial,
Yeah.
I am entitled, I think it's called Rule 16 or something
Yeah.
like that, to discovery of evidence in my case. And that's where we found the footage of mentioning the spy from CSPD,
Yeah.
basically. And it was, again, a team and community effort.
Mhm.
I don't know if you got to be there because I went to some of the court
Yeah.
dates too,
Yeah.
right? There was one where the municipal judge was like, wow, we've never seen people be this organized before. And it was like, wow, this guy doesn't know how much he just told on himself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So weird. And so because we were well organized
Yeah.
and we really doubled down on
Yeah.
being a community, I'm proud of us that we didn't have what would be a natural reaction, which was like shut it all down,
Yeah.
nobody like tight. Instead we just I think embraced each other more and offered each other more trust because it was such a hard thing to go through. And so I shared the footage with everyone, then all the attorneys were, on the same page, and the group was able to basically do their own investigative work
Yes.
and figure out who the hell this, I'm gonna call her an asshole,
Yeah.
was. Yeah. So that is something where I'm proud of me. I'm really proud
Yes.
of me because
Yes.
it wasn't easy to do that.
Yeah.
And the sad part is I did ultimately end up taking a plea because they gave me like a deal you couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
Um, it was a deferred sentence, meaning once I completed it, I wouldn't have any convictions
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
It could be sealed. And it was a plea to a lesser charge of obstruction, which in my mind was like, well, if you're gonna hurt my community, sure, yeah, yeah, I'm obstructing that,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And so I completed it successfully, and so there wasn't even that charge.
Yeah.
And the other terms were a letter of apology and and 25 hours of community service. And so I wrote a letter of apology, which honestly, I just had to be me. And I was like, if they don't accept this, I'll take the felony, which is a strange, but I was drawing the line.
Yeah.
If you're gonna force me to make an apology, and I put a message in there, which I'll send it to you later, but I did write in coded language like not sorry. Um, and I just kept that quiet and for a little while, but I eventually shared it. So what a strange journey, obviously, that sounds like. And I'm just grateful for, like I said, the community. They were a huge part of it. It was traumatizing. I've been through what's called EDMR therapy for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was something that my family was like, hey, you should probably get some help. Like you might have PTSD.
Yeah.
Which again, grateful for them and being able to have that support through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sister. When you were going through the court, when did you find out that we had that infiltrator?
Yeah, so the discovery was huge, right? It was hours of body cam footage. And as a group, we talked about like how we were gonna go through that and like which ones. And there was, in my case, there was even more because there was body cam of them searching all over my house, which is, I'm gonna say, a fucking horrible feeling, like watching that, so violating. Um, and so the discovery was shared as a group, and honestly, a huge shout out. It was, I think, Sam and John who did a lot of the watching, and they were able to nail down this one body cam. Oh, well, and actually, here's a little plot twist to the story too, is that the body cam in question that revealed everything, we started, because we were coordinated again, we started to realize there was a very deliberate effort from CSPD to suppress this footage. So then we were like, oh, well, we definitely need that footage, whatever is on there. And interestingly, again, because of the evidentiary kind of standards that the different courts have, the municipal judges were like, oh, no, you don't need that evidence as part of your discovery, right? In four other cases. And so there were 6 cases related to this total, right? And so 2 of us were in district court for more serious felony accusations. And once it was in my case's turn to talk about evidence, a big shout out to my judge, Erin Skoll. She basically called bullshit on CSPD and the fourth judicial district's prosecutor, because they were the prosecutor, you could even tell they were kind of embarrassed about like having to bring the case forward. And the judge asked the prosecutor, well, why are you trying to withhold this? Like what's going on here? And the prosecutor had to answer, well, I don't know. I haven't watched it. It's like, then why are you asking to have it withheld? Because CSPD was asking for it to be withheld. Which again was reinforcement. Whatever is on there, we want it. And so it was, when it was my turn in my case, my judge decided to release it because she said, that's a shitty argument. I'm releasing all the evidence. And I think she did do but possibly. But once I got that, again, I handed it all over to the group, and I think it was Sam and John who did a lot of the video watching, and they discovered what we affectionately call, because it is Officer Alamo, we have great affection for him because he's such an idiot. He handed us so much help, really. Is that it's just this dummy officer who left his body cam on like the entire time. And that's where we got all the information about the spy. And then, that became known among the group. And this guy, like, he's such a dummy that he left it on while he was like using the porta potty. Like, it's so embarrassing. And so it was really gross because it was like, oh, you wanted this withheld CSPD because it's so embarrassing. And there's other extremely problematic things on there. Like they have a very, what I would consider a sexual harassment like conversation about the friendly spy from their ranks, and say really violent things about what they want to do to us. And I remember processing all that. And I was like, how dare you? Like, we're your neighbors. We're not like some enemy combatant. We're out here wearing shirts that say housing is a human right.
Yeah.
You should care about that too.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that just relates to the fact that ultimately, like, as a result of this experience, I became an abolitionist, and it just, everything just made even more sense. What
Yeah.
we know to be true, right? The colonizer systems. And so that was an important, a really important part of this experience for
Yeah.
me, to just to be in a much deeper place of understanding, because we know that cops are really a part of a colonizer system where they protect property, not people.
Yeah.
And so when you know those truths, you know, unfortunately, you can understand even more why they came after us with such animus. And Peggy, I would like your thoughts on this, because it's something we talked about in
Yeah.
like, or the questions thinking about
Yeah.
this beforehand. One of the other really hard, this was a really, really hard experience.
Yeah.
And one of those pieces was that this case really shows their priorities
Mm-hmm.
for like policing and prosecution in this community, because I I'm not the same. And I remember exactly how horrible it felt to realize that while they were prosecuting us in this community, the six of us,
Mm-hmm.
the person who would eventually be the Club Q shooter who murdered my friend's boyfriend, we were like around the same timeline.
Yeah.
And they let them go,
Yeah.
and they went on to brutalize our community. And that is disgusting. It shows exactly what their priorities are, because if they wear, you know, that red MAGA hat, let them get away with murder so they can do it again,
Yeah.
is what it feels like. Whereas here we are, ironically, we're also wearing red.
Yeah.
So red is not okay if you're a communist socialist, but it's okay if you're, you know, a Trumpster. And so that really hurts.
Yeah, it did, because they put so much energy into getting that infiltrator to spy on my brother and sisters and community when we're, you know, and then when I hear about the case during that same time when everything was going down, this kid like,
A bomb threat.
yeah,
A bomb threat to an entire neighborhood.
yeah,
The whole neighborhood was evacuated
yeah,
with a violent threat, and this person was really let go
Yeah.
by the legal system here.
they let him go.
Yeah.
No focus. And that's why we're so angry here in Colorado Springs, because he, that night, it was a horrible night. I get to work at 12 in the
Yeah.
morning, and I hear people are being shot at, like right there at 12. And I'm worried about my kids, I'm worried about everybody, my friends, and then I find out that this kid could be been locked up, but CSP didn't care. It was important to them. You know,
Well, and they'll make little arguments that, for instance, the agency that was involved in the policing with the bomb threat, that was the sheriff's office. And then so CSPD will say, oh, well, that wasn't us, you know. And the truth is, that's details, facts matter.
Yeah.
But what we're really saying here is that there is a problem with the priorities of the system here. The people who are supposed to dispense justice, there are really deep-seated issues there. That another thing is, like, let's be very clear, like, this goes as far back as 2019 when CSPD murdered Devon Bailey, because that's another reason
Yeah.
that they targeted me. I had done one project with the Chinook Center,
Mhm.
and it's the Devon Bailey mural
Yeah.
outside that we all know and love, which
Yeah.
also celebrates SB 217,
Yeah.
which is Colorado's police accountability law. And again, as soon as they started learning these things about me, I feel like they started frothing at their mouth to call me like
Yeah.
a leftist terrorist, you know, for again believing that Black Lives Matter, right? That
Yeah.
housing's a human right, and knowing, because, you know, because Colorado Springs has taught me that white supremacy is domestic terrorism.
Yeah. And can you elaborate a little bit more on the 17 that was passed?
Yes, 17.
Yeah, because people don't know what that means, and
Yeah.
it's important.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not gonna get the bill name right, so I'll
Okay,
just go
okay.
by
Yeah.
SB 217, but it was really the first state law in the entire nation that took really significant steps
Mhm.
for dismantling the immunity that police shouldn't have from the crimes that they commit, essentially, because they commit crimes as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right? And they need to be held accountable.
Yes.
And so there are lots of different provisions of SB 217, but thank you for that question, because quickly I'll mention is, people listening being like, how can I help? Um, stay tuned. There are two big things that we're trying to work on right now, which is one is related to SB 217 in that it gave the state's attorney general, currently Phil Weiser, the power to apply discretion and initiate a pattern and practice investigation of police agencies. We need that. CSBD earned that. And so I haven't heard anything from the AG's office, but we're not done. And so when the time comes, we will ask for community support in that. And it's worked before, because the first pattern and practice investigation to happen so far has been the Aurora Police Department, which, as we know, officers were guilty of murdering Elijah McClain.
Yeah.
And so we deserve that here in Colorado Springs based on what we've had to endure by the police department. And then another thing that we're already calling on community support, and it's kind of a developing issue, but is that in the city of Colorado Springs, it was like, you haven't seen Ben Winslow, like, no shame, y'all. Because they started asking for $5 million in taxpayer money for our own little pop city here in Colorado Springs, right after right around the time this case broke and made, national news. And so we are tracking it. I think we believe it'll probably be on the ballot this fall.
Yeah.
And so there's no secret that there are people who would work on a campaign, no, on taking more taxpayer money to increase police infrastructure. So stay tuned for those things.
Yeah, I've been watching it. I signed the petition. I've been sharing it. And the Chauncey?
Yes, it's the Reform the Academy petition.
Yeah, and it's like they want all this money for a nice little more training and it's
I don't think more like square footage is gonna help them somehow learn how to not violate constitutional rights better. I think they gotta focus on that first, and not hurting people, not taking lives, really addressing their very clear biases before they get more playtime room.
It's like, and we all know why there's cops. It all started, they're really called slave patrol. That's what they are. Slave.
And I'm grateful we're finally, I mean, we're getting there at a time where we can speak these truths. Because unfortunately, there's still like parts of our society that are like, oh, that's just radical leftist, like, talking points. It's like, actually, that's just history. And we have to, I'm a firm believer that, and here's like the part about us where we all embrace Indigena, is that, the healing that we want, that we are starting to build towards, those like wrongs must be named first to get to that healing, right? So that's part of my mission while I'm at this. Yeah.
And the infiltrator, her name is April Rogers. That's her name. We'll be happy to share information.
Apparently she's still employed by CSPD. Right.
Interesting.
And that's why it's so offensive. And it's like, I can't understand why they don't get it, but she's still employed there. Who knows if she got a promotion, because the officer that shot Devon Bailey in the back multiple times, he got a promotion. Like, he's still with CSPD. And if you recall, there was an officer who thought he was being clever and had like a fake profile and was commenting kill them all under a live stream of us protesting during BLM summer. And that guy, he still works there, Dalvin Gadsden, like, maybe you all saw, that was someone who was brutalized by CSPD.
Oh, yes, he was just,
They
and-
just they did their own the same
Yeah,
trash. We
yeah.
investigated ourselves and we didn't do anything wrong. You know, well, Dalvin's my friend and I know you did something wrong because of what, like, just physically and of course emotionally as well, but they really, just the pictures, if you've seen them, what they did to him was terrible. They brutalized him.
Yeah.
And they, it's just the same trash in, trash out of that we didn't do anything wrong. It's like, and I guess there was some disciplinary action, but like very minimal to me based on what they did, because I don't want to speak incorrectly, but I know his injuries were substantial.
Yeah, I heard the news that he was, young Black man. He just, I understand he's not with the military. He was
a veteran. Yeah.
He was homeless, living in his car. Times are hard, and he just in his car driving slow. I think he had his friend with him.
It was, what I remember was, yeah, like early in the morning, and he had actually, someone offered him like $20 to give them a ride to work. And
Yeah.
so times are hard.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll take $20.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that they even knew each other beforehand, but CSPD alleges they stopped him because of an improperly displayed license plate. And from there, he was violently beaten and
Yeah.
ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So,
it was
and that
brutal.
was not, that was, I think that, I don't know if it was 2021 or 22, but Dalvin filed suit within, like, in
Yes.
December, because again, his civil rights were violated by CSPD as well. And interestingly, we have the Colorado Constitution and other like laws like SB 217 that are part of what the ACLU is using in my case to make the suit against CSPD and the FBI, which is just, not something I ever imagined for my life, to be honest with you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jack's like, this is right, since the beginning, when I first heard, like, this is historical, this is our sister, our first Chicana indigenous, going, against with the ACLU, going against, CSPD and the FBI. I'm like, this is powerful. This is historical. And I'm just, thank you so much for making the time and sharing your space. If does anybody have any questions for our sister?
Yeah. Okay. We see something in the chat.
Okay. Let me put it in the chat.
Oh, maybe that's an old message, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, happy to take questions.
Yeah.
I guess to follow up, I know you said you mentioned a little bit earlier like how people can get involved, but if there's anything specific also that maybe the partido can help with, or partido member can support with, if you can, let us know, that would be great too.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I'm a ideas kind of gal, so I got a lot going on in there, but at first I think of, I mean, I know this is something we've desired for a while now, and this case is kind of the biggest leveraging point that we have for it, which it would be amazing to see like even a national kind of coalition, but if the partido could consider like joining, maybe it's a letter that we work on where we get all these different organizations to say, hey, Phil Weiser, like, look at this and take some fucking action. So that's one thing that's I think of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it's like around the corner, but we do have our Congreso coming up, and the Friday of the Congreso in New Mexico is a community open event. So we have, speakers, we have everyone from the community is invited. You're more than welcome. It would be a great honor like to have you there if you could make it on the 15th of September. It is a Friday. But if you're able to, we would be more than happy to put you on the agenda, so you could speak, and so more people can hear your story, but also to mobilize, not just with there'll be people from Colorado there as well, but other people from different states as well, so that we can help you gain more national attention.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's always huge, and I appreciate that. I will definitely come back to confirm, and that would be amazing. And even to do it in person, but even if there's a way we could hook up like a virtual,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
super down for that. And the other thing is, I would simply mention is, if this is part of where the partido is going, but I'm a huge fan of door knocking, like canvassing. I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I appreciate it. I'm not the only one, but um, there may be a time where we're mobilizing in the fall for the no campaign.
Okay.
We don't even know the number, like the ballot, what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
But we do want to organize around that. And so, the more people power,
Yes.
the more hinted that are there, the stronger it'll be. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you
thank
can
you so much.
definitely count on us to disseminate any information and support in that way. We'll definitely keep in touch. And obviously Peggy is a leader as well within the partido and the Chicana caucus. So whatever we can do, we will continue doing to support you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It means the world. And I didn't know, like, that's the beautiful thing about this is like when you walk through it, like that's when you know how much like richer it can get.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you so
Oh,
much because I already felt like rich and now I'm just going even deeper and
Yes.
a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, it's important for us to be there with you, sister. That's why I was just like, when I heard,
So it's making me low key, huh?
yeah, and you've been so
Yeah.
calm, and you just,
I had to.
I see you, and I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna know you're going through all this.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's like 104, so I'll leave a little teaser. I'll leave a little teaser because this is the right audience, the partido. But I definitely like I've been a political animal, right? And uh, it's funny, I almost feel a little shy about it, but when I was in the county jail, like, I've never been to jail before, honestly. And one of my thoughts was I had to calm myself and tap in and like think of all the great people, like what great company I was in, really, right?
Yeah.
And being there and people asking me like, why are you here? And I was like, for political protest, actually. Never thought I would say that sort of thing. And then when I finally got out, which Chinook Center, so supportive. They paid for my legal defense. They helped me. They impounded my car because my bike, the alleged weapon, was in there. So not only did they black me out, they took my car. Yeah. So Chinook was here for me. Chinook was the place that I went like the very next day, right? Community, just right there. And walking in and talking to them, and I was like, okay, so when I run for office, you're all gonna help me knock doors, right? Because that experience being in that county jail and knowing how just I didn't even realize like how powerful I was. Apparently, I pissed them off like so much. They went so hard for me that guess what? You just made me like double down. Like I know exactly what I need to do now, and it's digging deeper into what we're all doing, like the mission of the partido. So that's just a little teaser alert.
Yes, I know, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna be out there knocking on doors. Yes,
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
yeah.
That's the way to do it because it's about community. So
Yes. Thank you so much, hermana, for your time and for your efforts and for your leadership as well.
Thank you.
And thank you to so much also Peggy for making me aware first and introducing me to everything that's going on, and also for coming up with this idea and leading this effort to bring Jax on so that our members and others in our community hear her story and learn how to get involved. Thank you.
Mil gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Take care.